G'day and welcome to Not Just a Sports Report. More specifically, today we're going to be launching into the UFC 329 early prelims pick'em podcast. So I'm going to split the card into three. Today we'll go through the early prelims, a bit of a preview, as well as my picks for the card. Tomorrow it'll be about the preliminary card, and then of course the following day we will get into the main card, headlined of course by Conor McGregor and Max Holloway, a much anticipated rematch. Obviously Conor McGregor, the biggest star in mixed martial arts history, but for today we are going to be focusing on the early prelim action. So I'm just going to pull up my notes. We're going to start off with flyweight fireworks kicking off the proceedings in Vegas this weekend as Cody custom-made Durden takes on Alessandro "No-No" Costa. We'll start with Alessandro Costa. He actually steps in for Ode Osborne, who had to withdraw from this matchup. The 30-year-old Brazilian entering with a record of 16 wins and 5 losses. Training at Lobo Gym MMA in Mexico, Costa has had back-to-back wins this year. A Stuart Nickel knockout back in April, and then a finish of Matt Schnell at the start of June. So just over a month ago now. Alessandro Costa, he is now looking to keep things rolling by taking this short notice opportunity up against Cody custom-made Durden, a 35-year-old American that managed to snap a 4-fight slide in his last outing up against Rafael Filo. That was in April, a unanimous decision victory for Durden to help him avoid 5 straight defeats. Now you might think with just one win in his last 5 that Durden could be on the way out, but he actually recently inked a 4-fight extension with the UFC. So Durden, he's going to be around a little while longer, but he's certainly going to want to continue his winning ways. As far as this fight, Durden up against Costa, Durden has got some really strong wrestling, but I think Costa has the more varied game in terms of he can hang in the wrestling department. He's got very strong grappling, and I think as far as the striking, he packs a lot more of a punch. So I'm going to be taking Alessandro Costa. Method of victory, some of these fights I might not specify. I'm going to say he gets the finish. So either knockout or submission. I'm not really sold either way. But my first pick of the card, I am going to go Alessandro Costa to get the job done inside the distance. Middleweight action up next as Ryan Gandra takes on Zachary Savage Reese. Having a look at Zachary Reese, the 32-year-old American with a record of 10 wins, 3 losses and a no contest. Reese will be looking to rebound from a split decision loss against Michel Pereira in Houston a bit earlier this year. And overall in the UFC, Zachary Reese is 4 wins, 3 losses and 1 no contest. He came into the UFC with a bit of hype as a really devastating finisher, but so far, he's had some moments. There was a good win over Jackson McVeigh, but overall, I think the hype that maybe UFC had for him to be able to market him and really sell him as a fan favorite hasn't quite come to fruition, but no doubt still a very exciting fighter to watch, as is his Brazilian opponent, 31-year-old Ryan Problema Gandra, entering with a record of 9-1. 6 wins by knockout, and he is on an 8-fight win streak and coming off a pretty good stint in recent times. Now, last year on Dana White's Contender Series, Gandra earned himself a contract with a finish over Trent Miller, and then he made his official promotional debut in Mexico. That was in February with a 41-second technical knockout victory over Jose Medina. So Gandra, look, he's ticking the right boxes. I said with Zachary Reese, perhaps the hype that he had entering the UFC, he hasn't quite lived up to that. Well, so far, even though it's early, Ryan Gandra is living up to the hype. You've got 2 devastating finishes colliding. The question is, who gets their hand raised? I think this is going to be a very fun fight for as long as it lasts. Zachary Reese, look, he'll be looking for the finish. He has got a lot of power in his hands. He's also got some submission skills as well, so I wonder whether he looks to take it in that direction. Ultimately, though, I'm going with Ryan Gandra. I really like what I've seen from him so far. I think he's got a lot of power, And I think he's got enough technique up against Zachary Reese, who's not exactly a technical master of his craft, to be able to find an opening and connect solid. And I think when Ryan Gandra connects, that Zachary Reese is going to be in some big trouble. So I'm going to take Ryan Gandra, and I'm going to take him by knockout. I think he can find the finishing blow. So we're going to go Ryan Gandra by knockout. Bantamweight division up next, and what was originally scheduled to be Farid Basharat up against Ethan Ewing. Now we've got a short notice opponent. And look, Ethan Ewing pulls out, but I tell you what, if there's anyone you could take a lesson from in terms of how to capitalize on taking a late notice fight, it is Ethan Ewing. Unfortunately, he's out of this one, but Farid Basharat, he remains, and he's got a new opponent in John Mowgli Garza, who's taken this one on short notice. Fighting out of Dallas, Texas, under the team at Aztecs MMA, John Garza, just 23 years of age, certainly looks to have a big future ahead of him. 6 wins, 1 loss overall, and heading into his UFC debut on a 5-fight win streak. Now, Garza had been fighting under the Fury FC banner. He picked up a knockout win in January, and he was actually booked, I believe, to be fighting for the Fury FC championship in his next fight. But of course, this opportunity came up. He had been training, he'd been in a fight camp, so he was fight ready. And now this opportunity has arisen to really just bypass the Fury FC title shot. I'm sure that'll still be there eventually if he ends up going back there. But for now, he's in the big time. So at just 23 years of age, and looking like he has a very big future, John Garza now stepping up to replace Ethan Ewing up against the undefeated Farid Basharat. Now, John Garza, I went back and watched a little bit of his tape. Very good for his age, no doubt. He's also got a signature celebration. Likes to get up on the cage, kind of lean back, act like he's sleeping. So, yeah, he's got a bit of a signature, got a bit of style about him as well. And the win he picked up back in January, a pretty brutal soccer kick to the body, and then followed it up with punches to get that technical knockout. So he has got a few finishes by way of knockout. I guess my big question here, though, is Garza ready for the UFC right now? He certainly looks to be all the makings of a great UFC fighter down the line, but perhaps this might be a little bit too soon. But hey, as I said, Ethan Ewing took a fight on short notice, and look how that has turned out for him. So John Garza, he's got a lot to gain here, and honestly, not much to lose. Pretty good position for him to be in, and it makes him dangerous up against someone who has his undefeated record to lose in ferocious Farid Basharat, fighting out of London, England, and also proudly representing Afghanistan here on International Fight Week. The 28-year-old, undefeated, 15-0, and now with the update to the rankings, he sits 10th in the UFC's bantamweight division. So Farid Basharat, with a win here, I believe this fight with Ethan Ewing was already lined up before the new rankings came out. So he gets a win here. You never know. Now that it's AI that's determining the rankings, he might even get pushed forward further toward the top 5. By later in the year, or even early next year, Farid, if he keeps winning, could be right in bantamweight title contention. He's one of the great beneficiaries of these new rankings. So 15-0, looking to extend his record to 16-0. There was a point, honestly, where it was his brother, Javid Basharat, who was probably looked at as the more promising contender. But of course now, Javid's in the PFL, and Farid is the one that really has the chance to shine now. Training at American Top Team and 6-0 inside the UFC octagon. Last time out, Farid picked up a split decision win over Jane Matsumoto. As far as what Farid Basharat brings to the table, predominantly his grappling. Loves to take the fight to the mat. He can be very dominant in that realm. Does have a submission game, but he's not someone, he's going to chase the submission if it's not quite there. He's very happy to take top position, rain down some damage, and just totally control the action, even if he's not able to find the finish. I think that's going to make him a really tough stylistic test for John Garza, who, as I said, looks to have a lot of skills and looks to be a UFC star of the future. But I think at the present, Farid Basharat is just a really hard guy to get, especially on short notice for your debut. Now, I didn't look for John Garza. One thing I wanted to do but forgot was to go and actually look at who he was going to fight in Fury FC. Was he fighting someone that was predominantly a grappler? Was this something that he has been already focusing on in his fight camp? Because if he hasn't been drilling a lot of positions where he's on his back, it could be a tough night at the office, because Farid Basharat, as I mentioned, he can be very dominant in that realm, and he can be just controlling, which, look, it's not the most exciting stuff, but I think we could see a situation here where Farid Basharat is in the driver's seat for the majority of the contest, has Garza on his back, and I don't think we're going to see a fast submission, but I am picking Farid Basharat by submission. I think brick by boring brick, he's slowly, methodically, just through having control, having the dominant position, he's going to frustrate Garza, he's going to wait for the opening, and I think Garza, as I said, has a future in the UFC. I just don't know if he's ready yet. Very happy to be proven wrong, but I think Garza, it's just going to be a tough mountain to climb. So I'm going to say Farid Basharat by submission. I'm going to say that he's in the driver's seat for the majority of it. Top position, a little bit of damage. Usually Farid, he's not someone that goes crazy with the ground and pound. There could be sections even of this fight where the crowd are getting a little bit restless, but ultimately that's his fight style. It has been extremely effective so far, with 15 wins and no losses. So if it ain't broken, don't fix it. I think we'll see a very classic Farid Basharat performance in terms of what we've already seen. I'm hoping Garza can surprise us. Would love to see it. But ultimately, I'm going to say Basharat finds his opening and gets the submission victory. Next up, a middleweight fight that I am very excited about. We have Damian the Baba Yaga Pinas up against Cesar Cezinha Almeida. Now, you have a case here. We've got a very young, exciting contender in the Baba Yaga taking on someone that at 38 years of age, you couldn't exactly consider a young gun on the rise, but still someone in this division that has turned some heads already in Almeida. So I think this is going to be a very fun fight. Stylistically, I'll speak about the test in a moment. But one thing UFC matchmakers do perfectly, or as close to perfect as they can, is the stylistic matchmaking. And, sometimes they get criticism for, who gets to fight for a championship or some of the other fights they put together. But I think in general, for the cards they build, a lot of the time, once you dig deeper into the fight, there are some subplots that are very exciting, and that is the case here with Pinas up against Almeida. But firstly, let's have a look at both fighters. Damian the Baba Yaga Pinas, proudly representing Aruba on International Fight Week, just 24 years of age and training at a world-class gym at Nova União. Now, Pinas is 9-1 overall. His one loss was an illegal kick disqualification, so it's not even like his loss was really a poor performance. Other than that, he's been flawless, a 100% finish rate, 8 knockouts, 1 submission, and we saw Pinas earn his contract on Contender Series last year. I'm trying hard not to butcher the last name here, but on Contender Series last year, a round 1 technical knockout over Vitor Costa really got everyone paying attention to Pinas. We were keen to see him make his debut, and he did in Mexico earlier this year. A first round technical knockout up against Wes Party Time Schultz. That was the first fight on the card, and that was really a way to set the tone. It showed that Pinas is someone to really get excited about in the division, and he comes into this one against Almeida with a significant advantage in reach, and he spoke after that win in Mexico. He has championship aspirations. He is genuinely here to try and make a run at the belt, and at just 24 years of age, he's got plenty of time to do so. Now, over on my Instagram, at Not Just a Sports Report, I've released a UFC Spotlight series, going through the main event, Conor McGregor's return, some of the rising stars from the card's storylines. I also picked my one to watch from this card, one young fighter to keep an eye on that I think is not miss material this weekend. Cannot miss him, Damian Pinas. is my pick. So he's my one to watch this weekend, but he's got a really tough matchup here up against Cesar Almeida, a Brazilian, 38 years old, 7-2 in MMA, but does have an extensive and very impressive background in kickboxing. As far as his MMA career, 7 wins, 5 of them by knockout, and both losses have been pretty similar. There is a glaring hole in Almeida's game. Now, as far as the stand-up, he is very experienced, he is very skilled. Both losses that he's had, last time out, a unanimous decision up against Cezary Olajszczyk, and Roman Kopylov was the other one, who is a striker but resorted to takedowns and control. And Almeida, really anytime someone's gone that route, he hasn't had an answer for it. Now with Damian Pinas, he is very much a striker. Now he does have some skills to take the fight to the mat, but really it's not what we've been seeing from him. So stand-up is where Almeida is definitely the most dangerous, but we have seen in the past that when Almeida has lost, basically you put him on his back and he struggles to get back up and struggles to really have an answer for it. And at 38 years of age, you would imagine by the time he really makes strides in that department, he's probably not going to be in the UFC anymore. So Almeida's hugely impressive in the stand-up, not so much as far as being able to defend takedowns and get up once he's taken down. But look, he is hell exciting. A hell of an exciting fighter to watch. Picked up a huge knockout last year up against Abdul Razak Al Hassan, someone that is very dangerous at all times in the fight. Al Hassan was actually really flurrying and looking to put him out, and Almeida just connected beautifully with a massive punch, put Abdul Razak Al Hassan out and put him out bad as well. So Almeida has a lot of technique, a lot of skill, and a lot of power. I mentioned about the matchmakers earlier and why this fight excites me. Stylistically, the question here, can Pinas, with 8 knockout wins, can he knock out Almeida? We've seen Almeida hurt, but we have not seen him put out. Now, I even went and looked at Cesar's kickboxing record. There was 1 loss missing, but I could not see a single knockout loss in kickboxing. This is a guy that has fought Alex Pereira more than once in kickboxing and even holds a victory over him. So Almeida, for me, what makes this really exciting, you've got Pinas, he has championship aspirations, he is the one to watch, but this is a really tough test against a guy that has proven almost impossible to put out and to stop. So that for me is the big stylistic question. Can Pinas find the knockout? If he can, I think that ticks the right box, and if he has championship aspirations, that is a huge step in the right direction to becoming a contender. Prediction-wise, I'm going to say he does it. I'm really high on just how far this Aruban fighter can go. I think Cesar Almeida as well, he's getting a little bit older, and I think Pinas finds the knockout blow. I'm going to say Damian Pinas by knockout. Potentially, I do wonder, could we see Damian resort to takedowns, put Almeida on his back? As I said, we've seen it be hugely effective, so that ultimately seems to be the path to victory, but I think Pinas has a lot of confidence in his own skills that he doesn't have to fight towards his opponent's weakness. I think he's going to look to fight towards his strength. That is the striking, that is the power. I think ultimately he's going to land on Almeida and he's going to be able to put him out. So my one to watch for this card, Damian Pinas, and I'm going to say he gets it done by knockout. And then the last fight in this early prelims portion, we've got a women's flyweight bout between 2 contenders as Tracy Cortez and Wang Tong look to push toward title contention. We'll start with Wang Tong, aka the Joker, 9-1 record, proudly representing China here on International Fight Week and training at Team Alpha Male. Now, Wang Tong is riding a 3-fight win streak into this bout and looking to really gather some momentum for a title push. Her last loss was a shocking defeat up against Gabriela Fernandez. Got submitted in that one. No one, well maybe a couple of people, certainly not myself or the majority of fans, saw that loss coming when it did. But since then, it's been a trio of decision victories over Bruno Brasil, Ariana Da Silva, who missed weight in that occasion, and a double weight miss when Cong missed weight and Edwara Moura, not for the first time, missed weight, Wang Tong getting her hand raised. Now, kind of the story here with Wang Tong, if she does push on toward contention, she has a history with the champion in Valentina Shevchenko, has a victory over her in Muay Thai. Now, that was a while ago, but of course, we've seen in the past, history matters. Just ask Alex Pereira, who had a win over Israel Adesanya, and look how that turned out for him. So Wang Tong has that history, but what she still needs are the wins. And now she's been picking up the wins, slowly climbing the ranks. Now, though, she's got a genuine, flyweight contender. Maybe not at the top of the division, but definitely a jump up from Edwara Moura. So Wang Tong, she enters this one definitely with the striking advantage. We saw in the Ariana Da Silva fight, she really, really compromised the leg of Da Silva. I think given that Cortez, very much a pressure fighter and will be looking to engage in the wrestling, wouldn't be surprised if Wang Tong implements the calf kick and really tries to slow down Cortez. We saw it very effective up against Ariana Da Silva. So I think if Wang Tong can start hurting Cortez to the leg, it's going to make it a lot more difficult for Cortez to impose her style. And as far as the actual rest of the striking, she's got a lot of power in her punch. She showed that in her UFC debut. And I think ultimately, on the feet, Wang Tong is going to be most comfortable. And the longer the fight is standing, the more I think this favors the Joker. She'll be taking on Tracy Cortez, 12-3 overall, representing America and, of course, her Mexican heritage. Now, both of these ladies, I believe, are ranked. I don't have that in front of me. I think Meta updated the rankings, and I just went for this one. Fuck it. It's a bit of a mess, but they're both in and around the mix. Now, Tracy Cortez, 12-3 overall, previously was on an 11-fight winning run that really had her in the mix at 125 pounds. However, recently, as she has faced that step up to the top end of the division, losses in 2 of her last 3 outings. There was a main event defeat up against Thug Rose Namajunas. She did have a bounce-back unanimous decision win over Viviane Araújo, and then last time out was submitted in a rematch up against Erin Cold-Blooded Blanchfield. A rematch which Cortez actually won originally, although split decision, it was quite a contentious victory. They ran it back. Blanchfield, very decisive winner. So you can kind of see throughout her UFC run, Cortez is better than the majority of this division. But what we have seen is that when she goes to that very top level, once you start getting into the championship contenders, that has been her downfall so far. So the big question here for me is Wang Tong. Is she someone that has the makings of a title challenger, someone that can work her way to the top of this division? And if so, the perfect way to show that is to beat Cortez, who outside of losing to top contenders has been flawless at turning back anyone else that's been in her way. So for me, that's really what excites me. Stylistically should be interesting. Cortez, very much a pressure fighter, should be looking to stay in the face of Wang Tong, and ultimately she'll be looking for takedowns. She'll be looking to really get the fight to the mat. We saw Wang Tong in her one professional defeat in MMA get submitted, so you would imagine she does have deficiencies there. She's also super comfortable in the striking, so it's interesting, right? Because Cortez, decent striking, but I don't think of her as a striker. I don't think of her as someone that is very comfortable and fluid in the striking exchanges, whereas Wang Tong, that is where her bread is buttered. And then you flip that, the wrestling, the grappling, once the fight hits the mat, Cortez is in her element. That is where her bread is buttered and where she can really have success, and where Wang Tong is not comfortable from what we've seen. So it's interesting. Obviously, every fight starts standing. That favors Wang Tong. I think she's going to be really dangerous. I think this is also one of the tougher fights I've had to pick on the card. But I'm going to go with Tracy Cortez by decision. I'm going to bank on the fact that she can find her entries. She can get the takedowns. And Wang Tong still, I think there are some questions that have yet to be answered as far as her skills on the mat. I don't think she's really taken on anyone that is a really strong test of that as she looks to climb to the top of the women's flyweight division. This one, I will not be surprised at all if Wang Tong has all the success. She just dominates the striking, and she does start to move toward a potential rematch with Valentina Shevchenko. But for me, I guess I want to see those questions answered in that fight. I would like to see how Wang Tong looks in a fight like this before I fully get on the bandwagon for her push toward championship contention. With Cortez, she's someone a lot of the time I'm predicting her to win. I didn't pick her to win against Blanchfield or Rose Namajunas, but other than that, I think I've picked her. So actually thinking about it, I don't know if I've ever got a Tracy Cortez fight wrong. This could be the one. This could certainly be the one, but I'm going to stick with what's worked for me in the past. I think Tracy Cortez has the skills. I think ultimately the challenge will be finding the takedowns, finding the entries. I could see her looking to shoot and having Wang Tong up against the cage, but not quite being able to get her to the mat and having to work in the clinch. It's going to be tough. I think this is a stylistically really challenging matchup for Tracy. But I'm going to back her in. I'm going to say Tracy Cortez by decision. So those are my picks for the first 5 fights on this card. Just to make it a bit more viewer friendly, I've broken it up or split it into 3 videos so you can watch it nice and fast. Next up, I'm going to be going through the rest of the preliminary card. And we've got some really fun fights. You've got Cody Garbrandt up against Adrian Yanez. Gable Steveson making his highly anticipated UFC debut up against Alicia Ellison. There you go. They're really not looking to fast-track Gable Steveson. You've got Robert Whittaker as well, making the move up to light heavyweight. So there's a bit to get into. There will be 4 fights that I'll be covering, similar to this, preview, predictions. We're going to try and get the picks going nice and strong. And then, of course, well, I think what everyone wants to hear about is the main card. So that will be its own standalone video. We'll be going through all 5 fights. You've got the headliner, McGregor up against Holloway. You've got European All-Stars looking to push forward in the lightweight title mix as Benoit God of War Saint-Denis takes on Paddy Pimblett, and some really fun fights across the rest of the card to get into. But we've started off today with the early prelims. Those are my picks. Hopefully you took something from today's podcast, whether you learned something, whether it just helped you get a bit more excited for the card ahead. And yeah, let's hope the picks are successful. But until next time, that has been all for today. And tomorrow we will be covering the rest of the prelims. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, take care of yourselves.